Greetings, Context of White Supremacy. Gus T Renegade in to share constructive information on what racism, white supremacy is, and how it works. I hope the programs have been constructive for everybody who has been listening. If they have not, what I say consistently, if you do not find the cows to be of constructive value, if you are not getting helpful information, please invest your time and energy in something else, whether it's coming up with your own projects or supporting the efforts of another non-white person who is working against racism, white supremacy. Our guest for today's program, strongly suspect he will have a plethora of helpful, very constructive information. He has been with us before, and we appreciated his previous appearance so much, and I know a lot of people throw that term appreciation around. We demonstrated our appreciation of having him on the program. He suggested that we have Sister Nefertari of the Children of Southampton, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, suggested that we have her on the program. She was here just a few weeks after he was here in April, and Gus made an appearance on her broadcast. Our guest today, he also suggested that we have Mrs. Gwen Ragsdale on the program. She is the co-curator of the Lest We Forget Museum of Black Slavery, also in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Not only was she here a few weeks ago, she and her husband, Mr. J. Justin Ragsdale, they tentatively, we're looking at having them back again tomorrow because Mr. Ragsdale was not able to be with us last time. And we're also looking, he suggested some other guests as well. Marira Kwesi, we're looking to have her on next month as well. So we appreciated, listened closely, and tried to build on the knowledge he shared, and we'll hopefully be able to do that again today. Our guest, he is the author of War on the Horizon, Black Resistance to the White Sex Assault. The website, tons of constructive information. It's linked in the description to this program, waronthehorizon.com. One more time, that address, waronthehorizon.com. We are incredibly grateful to have him on the program for a second time. Our guest, the Irritated Genie. Irritated Genie, are you with us, sir?
Yes, sir. Welcome to the warfront. How you doing, brother?
I am still learning and unfortunately still being victimized, but working as hard as I can to correct that. How are you doing, sir?
We're doing fantastic. Just want to say special appreciation to you for the work that you're doing. Since the time we just very recently got familiar with you, I think it was our brother Kamal Cambone who suggested us to you. And since that time, many of the people in our purview of War on the Horizon have been finding out about the cows, the show that you do, and it's a fantastic show. I've heard nothing but constructive feedback from the different guests you've had, black and the Euros that you interviewed that give us information and help us understand how racism works so that we can counter it. So we want to say at War on the Horizon, you're doing a fantastic job. We'd like to commend our brothers and sisters out here who we see are on this battlefield fighting the same fight that we're fighting. So we thank you for inviting us back on.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, and I hope it's worthy of your time and energy to be with us for a second time starting this program. Nothing is a coincidence or an accident here at the Context of White Supremacy, so-called Memorial Day, that we have author of War on the Horizon, and yes, we are still on the battlefield of racism, white supremacy. Dr. Cambone, I wanted to play a short sound clip because I think it would be a nice way to set the tone for the broadcast, and we're going to hop right into it.
Yes, sir.
Our people are very serious about not being very serious. Meanwhile, white people are very serious about playing hardball against us, and this hardball is called genocide.
Dr. Kamal Cambone, I echo his sentiments completely, and hopefully we demonstrate on this program we are dedicated to working against that and also being very serious about countering and working against racism, white supremacy. I want to hop right to it. This program, I spoke with Irritated Genie, and I told him I wanted to focus on feminism and how that is being used to support and refine the system of racism, white supremacy. Can you share your definition of feminism, Irritated Genie?
Yes. In a nutshell, actually, let me just start by saying we're on our way. Our organization went down to Baton Rouge, Louisiana. We were invited in by a brother that's down in Louisiana, and anybody that's fighting racism in Louisiana is a freedom fighter, because that's one of the most racist, if you will, overtly anti-black, racist, and violent states in this country. It's really, to some degree, the pulse of racism. And our brother down here, Brother Louis Ali, invited us down for a 3-day course on our entertainment course that we did. And so we're actually driving on our way back up from Baton Rouge, back to where we are based and located in Washington, D.C. And so, be that as it may, we're on the road. We wanted to do this interview because we thought it was so important that we tackle a topic that most of our people don't really understand what's happening. And in a nutshell, feminism is the intellectual complement to what we call lesbianism, which is anytime a female, by her own free will, decides to have sexual contact with another female, you have lesbianism. And that is a physical act, that is a sexual act. Well, the complement for that physical behavior that stems out of called lesbianism is an intellectual construct where the black woman, if we talk about feminism as it relates to black women in particular, black feminism is where a black woman believes that she has a war against men, as opposed to believing that her war is against the whites. So in other words, the white feminist in feminism, her mentality is that women, in particular white females, but women in general, are in a war against men. That's the white female construct of feminism. When they get black women to accept the behavior, then a black woman adopts a white female mentality that she is a partner with other women in the world in a war against men, when the appropriate intellectual construct for a black woman is that as a black woman, she is in a war with her men and her children in a war against white supremacy, which includes white males, females, and children.
Oh, okay. Do you think this concept of feminism, and I guess before I even get there, I think a lot of black females would say, hey, we have been mistreated, yes, by white people, but black males, they have mistreated us. They have not done the correct thing. There's no way you're going to sit here and say that black males do not have a long history of abusing black females. What would your response to that be?
My response would be, it depends, because when you use terms like a long history, it is relative. If you are talking about a long history as it's related to how long white supremacy has existed, then that may have some relevance. If it is a long history as it relates to the history of the world and how long we as black people have been on this planet and working with one another, then that is absolutely not true. The reality is, the history tells us that in the history of the world, there has been no stronger relationship between any man and woman of any race than the black man and the black woman. I'll take it a step further. The only race of people whose religious or spiritual construct has always included a male and female complementary God construct is the black man and the black woman. Everybody else in the world has either had a male deity or no deity whatsoever. But for us as black people, the black woman has always been considered if not equal. In many cases, we have what we call maternal civilizations, where the woman is actually the one where the name and the lineage comes down through the woman. So to say that, the point that I'm making is that the most respected woman by her own race, who are living in free and independent construct in the history of the world, is the black woman. Contrarily, if we look at the polar end of that, the white female has always been treated as a sexual toilet and as a lesser of an individual inside of her race. What happens is, most of us do not have a proper context of history, nor do we have an understanding of cause and effect. The cause being racism, white supremacy, the effect, black men mistreating black women. And the part that black women tend not to talk about is that in this construct, it is not only that black men abuse black women, but whites have also trained black women to mistreat black men and black boys. So that if not one-sided, we are all equally under a system that trains us to abuse and destroy one another. And that is the part that we very seldom discuss, and that is the part that we don't understand. The reality of it is, if you look in the history of the world as a timeline, it has been a very, very short period of time that black men have mistreated black women. In fact, if you were to put it up on a timeline from the beginning of the world that we know it in history and mark it into 10 periods, with right now being the last period, we wouldn't even have a whole one of those 10 periods that we've been mistreating our women. It has been an extremely short period of time, and it is 100% a result of the fact that we are under a system of domination where from the time we are children, we are trained to abuse and mistreat one another. And as a result, we begin to adopt the behavior and the treatment of one another that our enemy has put on us for so many thousands of years.
I just want to make sure our listeners understand that clearly. Are you saying then that it is and has always been an integral aspect of racism, white supremacy, to manifest conflict between black males and black females?
Yes, sir. In fact, I will say the key ingredient in destroying black people, if you're looking at a relationship or any one thing that you want to do to black people to destroy us as a race of people, you attack the people where they're strongest. The place that we are strongest, the bedrock and the foundation of African civilization or black culture, is the strong, committed relationship between the black man and the black woman. As a consequence, the European #1 strategy to destroy the black man and black woman as a race is to divorce the relationship between the black man and black woman. And that is the centerpiece of racism, white supremacy. If we look at the Atlantic slave trade and slavery as a highlight of European oppression of black people, as a earmark of racism, white supremacy, as an example, what we see is they kidnapped us, and before anything else, they separated us. That right there is a major act of warfare of the men against the women, because it is the men's job to protect their women and their children. Under any and all circumstances, regardless of what leads to that, when the men fail to do that, they have failed their women and children. As a consequence, you have created a conflict because their job was to keep them protected. To go a step further, not only did they kidnap us and separate us, then they began to violate our women while we were in bondage in front of us. So now they're creating another thing called resentment, because it's one thing to lose a battle. In most battles, unless you tie, which in most cases you don't, you either win or you lose. But there is a deep sense of resentment from a group of women who are getting abused in the presence of the men that are supposed to be protecting them. So the European was made sure that when they brought us over on the slave ships when they raided different African villages and civilizations, that they made sure that they made the men stand around and watch as they abused the women and children. Another thing that they did, and these things are all being done simultaneously, but they have a very serious psychological impact. They made black men participate in the abuse of black women. An example, again, from the Atlantic slave trade, the sex farms that they had in America. And if you look up sex farms in pre-colonial America or sex farms during slavery on the internet, you should be able to find substantial information of the fact that they had sex farms, or look up breeding farms, where they would actually have black men trained to be what they call studs, very much similar to what they would do with horses when they're breeding horses, or dogs when they're breeding dogs. They take the biggest and the strongest of the males, and they force them to impregnate the females. Well, they actually forced black men by white law to rape and impregnate our women, and then abandon those families as they took the women away and took the children away from the women and raised them in different places, and would make a black woman bear 10 to 12 children sometimes, never ever having the luxury of, it should be lucky if she could raise even one of them. And that man would never even know any of the children that he had created, and many times the same daughters that he would create when they hit puberty, and the slave masters or the Europeans wanted to create more enslaved Africans, they would bring his daughter to him to rape. He would not only not recognize her as his daughter, but he would be forced to rape her and brutalize her and impregnate her. And so now he would have a new child that would be his daughter and his granddaughter at the same time. So by white law, we were forced to do acts of incest, rape, what we would call pimping or prostituting our own women, where they would get the black male to go down to the female quarters and grab a black woman and bring her up to the big house for her to be raped or brutalized, a young girl sometime. The sex farms where Europeans would come to buy little girls or little boys and take them and purchase them and take them back home as sexual slaves and objects, and so that they could exercise their sexual lust on our children. And so that creates a serious calamity in the relationship between black men and black women, because not only are black men participating in the sexual abuse of black women, but we are actually becoming absentee fathers, men who, unlike our civilizations in Africa, where a man, not only would he love any one family he had, but sometimes he was responsible for taking care of 3 or 4 families. And that was a lot of responsibility, but it was also a lot of pride, because he had lots of children. He had a family. He was proud to see these youth be raised, and he took it upon himself as a privilege and an honor to raise his boys to men, his daughters to girls, so that they could keep his lineage going and keep our race going. Now, we were systematically trained as black men to abandon the children that we impregnated our women with and brought into this world. So even though it wasn't necessarily spoken and verbalized directly, there is exceptional resentment, hatred, anger, disappointment, and every emotion that we can think of that black women are feeling under those set of circumstances. And there's an extreme amount of despair, embarrassment, disappointment, lack of self-esteem on behalf of black men who realize that under this system, we cannot properly classify ourselves as men unless we are actively engaged in acts of physical or intellectual or psychological warfare with our enemy. And so, I'm sorry, you still there, brother?
Oh, yes, sir. I'm listening intently. Please continue.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. And so that is what we had a few hundred years ago. Now when we look at what's going on today, they have transferred from a system of physical enslavement to a system of psychological warfare, whereby instead of putting shackles on our bodies and forcing us to do physical labor, through the use of their media, through the use of their schools of miseducation of our people, through the use of their system, for lack of a better term, we'll call it Tomism, where they go out and get what we classify as Uncle Toms, which are black people who, with malice of forethought and a complete understanding of what they're doing, they will sell out the interests of black people to whites in favor of money or some other perceived benefit, whether they actually get one or not. Through this system of Tomism, miseducation, and entertainment, which is a major psychological weapon system of training black people what to believe and how to behave, they have re-enslaved us, teaching us to do and act and behave in ways that are patently false and that will result in no positive and productive behavior, but only counter to our existence, so that they still have us in a type of slavery, except that they don't need chains to keep us enslaved, and they can let us roam free on the land because they know we will go nowhere, because they have shaped the intellectual boundaries with which we can think and act. To make it more precise, they made us physically rape our women then. Now they pay individuals in our community $1 million contracts to sing songs and do videos with our women presented as half-naked sexual objects bouncing around on the television screen, presented as sexual toys. Teaching young males that the value that a female has is her body, not her mind. Teaching young black girls that the value that she has is in her body and her sexual attributes, but not in her wisdom and her commitment to her people and her personality, and thus creating a set of circumstances where all black men learn to do is abuse and otherwise mistreat our women, and then the natural instinct of a man kicks in that does not have respect for a woman who is loose and gives herself freely to males, and so he does not respect her, and it creates a cycle of black men mistreating black women, then not respecting black women for the behavior that they participate in because of it, and then because our women have been taught that their only value is in their sexuality, we have a whole cycle of destruction, because then you have decent black men who only want to see the best thing for black women, so they're operating outside of the normal construct of racism and white supremacy. And because they actually love and respect black women, those same black women have been trained to hate and brutalize those men, to perceive those men as weak for loving and appreciating her, and then abusing those men. So if you're a black man who fits in the typical category of a Negro who abuses black women and does not think that black women have value, you are given many sexual rewards and any kind of reward from black women because she believes that she has no value, and since you treat her like she has no value, she values your appreciation for her. But then the very converse relationships exist with the man who has the greatest respect for her, the greatest love for her, the greatest commitment for her. She becomes and perceives him as weak and stupid because she believes she has no value. And so when he tries to treat her well, she brutalizes him. She argues with him. She fights with him. She does everything possible to drive that man out of her life, because somewhere deep in her psychology, she does not believe that she is worth being treated like a queen in the manner that this man sees her. And so she perceives him to be weak and foolish to see her in such a high regard, and so she sabotages that relationship by mistreating him, trying as much as possible to destroy his sense of manhood, because men measure their manhood in how well they can keep their own women happy. If a man's woman is happy, that man sleeps good that night. It doesn't matter what it takes, that's what he wants to do. But when he finds a woman that he cannot make happy, it destroys his self-esteem, it depresses him, and he either is going to move on or he's going to slowly die. And so our women, through the media, have been trained to be the kind of women to kill black manhood. Not only do they shoot down and try to kill black manhood because of what our enemies teach them, but they also kill it in the children. So if they have a strong black male child, the media has trained them to believe that the black male is a monster and that an aggressive black male is a monster and a rapist of black women and an abuser of black women. And because many of our women have suffered sexual abuse by the hands of black males who are sick and through the system of racism and white supremacy have been trained to brutalize our own people. In addition to that, even if they haven't been sexually abused by black men, they watch a media that constantly tells them that strong, aggressive black males are monsters, and that is put a rubber stamp on that when they listen to the music with these aggressive black males calling them bees and hoes and every negative term that they hear. And so they hate black male aggression. And so when they have a little boy, they try to turn him into something as feminine as possible because they hate the male aggression because they've been turned to believe it's something bad. And so by virtue of the fact of hating black malehood and black male aggression, they take what would otherwise be a sprouting, blossoming black warrior who would fight on behalf of his race and turn him into a punk and a homosexual right in their home, punching on him, dressing them in pink clothes, letting them be lazy, not allowing men to put discipline on them. And so the European has created a psychological system of sabotage and self-destruction in our community that in many ways is more effective than the slave chains and the whips and the sex farms and the breeding farms that they had during the course of chattel slavery.
Again, our guest, his second appearance on the Context of White Supremacy, the Irritated Genie, author of War on the Horizon, Black Resistance to the White Sex Assault. Please support the website, waronthehorizon.com. Again, waronthehorizon.com. Wow, so much information. Critical component that you talked about, a lot of the resentment that is built up, black females have, being mistreated, being in a system of racism, white supremacy, and black males not being in position to protect them, provide, care for them. I have spoken about feminism and how I think this is a tool of racist white supremacists, and I have had more than one black female respond and get very upset and say that was me practicing sexism. I wanted to share some of the comments because I'm certain that you have also encountered some black females who have not been appreciative of you making any statements about feminism. One of the folks said that black women during civil rights and any major transition in the black community have always spoken out against and warned against the deceptive black males that speak against racism but really think that women are beneath them and only are here to serve the black man. That the more this person hears black males speak against racism, the more I am seeing a trend that black males want the power the white man has. Black males want to be the white man. Have you heard any comments like that when you give these sort of presentations, and how do you respond to it?
Brother, not only have I heard that, but I've heard far worse than that. I've been called names and terms have been used in reference to what I'm doing that I wouldn't like to use on your show because I want to be polite. And I'm sure you can, my brothers and sisters out there that are listening, you can imagine some of those terms. I'm going to tell you what happened intellectually. And you're absolutely correct when you say that feminism is a tool in the hands of white supremacy as it relates to how it is used to make black women fight against their own race. What happens is that when a black woman adopts feminism, she literally becomes a European in her thinking, meaning her complete mental construct changes. For a black woman to make the statement that she believes that a black man thinks that black women are here to serve black men, and she has a problem with that, tells you that she is very, very sick, because if you are in a balanced relationship, and if you are an African, and you know that you're an African with a heritage of African culture, and you know anything about what that means, we have always prided ourselves as men being here to be servants, leaders, protectors of our women and children. So we are servants of our women. We want a beautiful world that they can live in and enjoy. We are here for them. And our women are supposed to be here as nurturers of our family, as servants to the men, as servants to the children. We all serve one another in an interest of bettering our community. What happens is, the European construct is that the only thing that has value is the male. The female is a sexual toilet, and so the female has to develop, in Europe, had to develop their own ideology to allow them to feel like they had any type of value whatsoever. So what it led to, because, and we talked about this on the show before, I think we did, about the hierarchy of European sexuality, where grown males with little boys was their primary sexual type of interaction. So what happens is, under the system where white females were not appreciated sexually, they began to deal with one another sexually. And so the ideology began to develop that there was this whole world for females that is a sexual world that is in a world with males, who the males want to be with each other sexually, and these females want to be with each other sexually. So there's a competition between the males and the females. And so the female develops the system, I can do whatever you can do as well as you can do it, and I can do what you, but they want to do that because the only thing in European society that has value are things that have male attributes to them. So for instance, if you can cook well, that's perceived as a female attribute for Europeans. It doesn't have any value. So you don't want to be relegated to having to cook. Raising children, it's not that as important. They don't really care about their children and the well-being of their children and the raising of their children. And motherhood is not something that's revered in Europe. We even see where the Europeans will take us during slavery, enslave us, and actually take the women that they're brutalizing and killing and let them raise their children. Why? Because motherhood is not something they value. You wouldn't enslave a group of people and then turn your babies over to them unless you done lost your mind, or a combination of lost your mind, and in addition to having lost your mind, you really don't care about children. It's not something that is a priority to you. It's not something you really want to do anyway. So these things that are relegated as low in European society, here's the problem when a black woman thinks like that. The European, in many ways, being the savage, the degenerate demon that they are in the way that they operate and exist, they're the antithesis and the complete opposite, 180 degrees diametrically opposed to African culture. In African culture, the things that were revered the most, one of them was the ability to produce life. So for a black man, a black woman being able to produce life was the greatest, or one of the greatest things that could exist. Here it is, God has given this woman the ability to produce a child. The man did not have that ability to produce a child, and so for us, that made her, to some degree, almost superior. And so we would bow to the power of the woman to bring forth a child. And so for her to be a mother with 10 or 12 children, she was looked at in our communities as a great mother, as a great woman. If all she did was raise 12 healthy, decent people for our community, she had done more than anyone in our community could possibly do. The greatest warrior in the world would come and sit before her feet as an elder and say, "Great mother, we just appreciate you so much." Now, for some people that sounds corny, but that's who we are as a people. If you want to call us corny, it is what it is. We reveled and marveled in the ability for the man to go and work hard to produce for his family and to come home to a nice environment. Who produced that nice environment? Who produced the children? Who kept that environment in a positive, productive manner. It was the black woman. We were not interested in going and overthrowing every race and murdering and pillaging. So because our culture wasn't developed like that, we actually got some enjoyment out of everyday living and life, planting crops, talking to one another, social, and we actually enjoyed that. So when you can enjoy those things and you're socially healthy, there is no need to devalue the things that make that possible. The European, being a very nomadic, destructive, death-seeking being, does not have a need for a homemaker because his intent is not to build a nice home but to go and destroy others. The thing he found is the most valuable is a destructive disorganizer or destroyer. And so when he finds, if he wants a female, if she can create havoc and wage war on somebody, he wishes of that. But the general female attribute has no value. So what happens in our modern society is that in an attempt to have value, which black men have lost the art of giving our women value and showing them that we value them in their natural state, in an attempt to develop a sense of value, the black woman is trying to feel valuable. The whites give her a tool that the black woman thinks will give her power to have value. What she doesn't realize is that the tool is a tool designed for anybody trying to fight black people and black men and women in our relationship, as opposed to a tool to uplift her. So she becomes a very educated black woman if education means learning what white folks want black people to learn. But she has no information of how to make her own community better. She can't give you the first answer on that. All she can do is be a very good secretary, and I don't mean just a position of secretary classified that way. She is a secretary of white interest, meaning she spends most of her time organizing the white establishment. She is the secretary for the president. She is the organizer or manager on these corporations. She organizes this system very well, where her organizational skills used to be employed in her home with her children and her husband and her family, organizing the family to be productive and progressive. She does not utilize her talents to do that anymore because our communities are not structured in that manner, because we don't believe that there's any value in that. And so it creates a devastating situation, because whether it's conscious or unconscious, the black man is trying to do two things. One, get as far away from the European as possible, and two, wage as much war on European interests as possible. Can either do one or the other or both. Any sane black man that has any semblance of reality, he's trying to get away from this, or he's trying to fight what exists, because that is the nature of a man, to fight with the enemies of his people. And what happens is that the partner he needs to help him be successful and sustain himself in this war has literally taken on the mentality of the demon and the devil that he's trying to fight, and becomes the living embodiment of the ideas of the person that he's trying to destroy. So what would be his natural partner in the war becomes another enemy he has to fight in his own home. In other words, the black man thinks that he comes home from a hard day of work, and we're only talking about the black men who are doing the right thing. If you're talking about a Negro who doesn't know any of this, he still has to deal with some of it, but we have a whole other discussion about his behavior. But for a decent black man who wants to fight white supremacy, he wants to come home to a woman who also wants white supremacy to die, who can understand why he wants to die, who can encourage him and be a partner there for him to keep him strong, and to be a partner with him in this journey. Instead, he comes home to a woman who views black male authority as her enemy. And so instead of being like black women in the 30s and 40s and 50s, who took a black man who didn't feel like he had any power, put so much pressure on him to be a strong, committed, aggressive black man, that he would start organizations like the Black Panthers, like the UNIA, like the Nation of Islam. He would join himself into develop manhood and be a man by virtue of working on behalf of his people. She becomes a counter of that, the very contrary of that. The man that wants to go and fight for his people She fights him every step of the way. All you want to do is blame stuff on white folks. You talk about racism, white supremacy, but really you want to keep the black woman down. Why is it you don't want women to be up front? Well, if we're in a war, most real men don't want their women to be out there fighting on the front line. Not because they don't think that their women are capable, because if he has any value of a man, he wants to be out there doing that part so that she doesn't have to deal with what he has to deal with. And if she has any sense, she'll do the other things that keep the society and the home going so that he can be proud of the fact that he's fighting for her. Instead, the black woman has adopted the European value system of the only thing being valuable is what the men do. So she now, even though she is not made for that type of warfare, for the type of things that we're going to have to do to defeat the white race, to destroy racism, white supremacy, she's not made for that. Heck, look at black men and the jobs we're doing. We ain't made for it. Obviously, based on the condition that we're in. But if we're talking warfare, it is a male-dominant or requires male leadership in most cases. It is a male-centered discipline of war. The object of going against a enemy, and particularly when we talk about the type of enemy like the European, with the things that we have to accept are going to happen and that we're going to have to do to fight this war. The appropriate thing is for women to be happy to see men being strong men and to help them. But because she only values male attributes, black women tend to fight with black men who want to be male and aggressive and want to fight racism, white supremacy. In addition to that, she's supposed to, as a black woman, be loyal to the interests of black people, which means her men and her children. But the media and the world she lives in and her education, her miseducation, train her to protect the interests of whites and fight black male authority. So if a black man tries to get in a position of power to fight whites, he not only has to fight the whites, he not only has to fight the Uncle Tom Negroes around him, he not only has to fight his own shortcomings, he also has to fight what would otherwise be his natural partner, the black woman.
Again, Context of White Supremacy, our guest, the Irritated Genie. When you were with us, April 1st, when you were with us, you talked about how this conflict has been specifically, I'll say, precision crafted, engineered by racist white supremacists, and specifically the use of entertainment. And we discussed the color purple and how that is one of the shining illustrations of creating conflict between black males and black females. In your DVD presentation, Feminism, Lesbianism, and the Making of a Black Widow, you also talk about how Good Times is another excellent example of this. Can you kind of break down what happened in Good Times?
Yes, sir. In Good Times, it's a very interesting story. Most of our people don't know. But when you learn to be able to analyze and read what goes on with media, what you will actually be able to see, even without knowing what's going on in the background, there's some very interesting things that you can interpret from seeing them from the outside. If we think about Good Times, it was very interesting. You've heard people make jokes about the fact that here's a show where we lost in every show. The father couldn't keep a job, some kind of crisis situation, a mother taking an iron and burning her girl, the father dying when he finally gets a good job, just all kind of tragedy, yet the name of it is Good Times. So we see right there conflict even in the name. But there were some positive aspects. A strong man that loved his wife. They took care of the children, and they would not allow the children to dominate them, like we see so many shows today with black children being disrespectful and dominating the parents. That is not our culture. What was going on with Good Times is a very interesting story. There was a brother who, I think his name was Monty, Eric Monty. He's the brother that did Coolie High. And he wrote a script, and it was called The Black Family. Because he said, you know, we have so many children growing up in housing projects without fathers. And we need something to show a family that works hard to stay together in the black community, dealing with all the difficult things that we have to deal with in society. And even though they're poor, it's a strong family with a mother and a father and children that stay together. And so he put together this script called The Black Family. He called up a white so-called Jew. We call them small hats. These are the individuals who completely own, operate, and dominate the entertainment industry. He called them up, and he called up Norman Lear. And Norman Lear said, hey, I like the script. Let's go and make it a television sitcom. So they agreed to do that. And when they got to the point of putting the cast together, there was one fight and issue that they had the entire time. The white so-called Jew, Norman Lear, said, there's nothing funny about a strong black man in a household. We want to get rid of the man. And Eric Monty said, I will not do it if we don't have a strong black man. And Norman Lear liked Esther Roll for the mother part, and he asked her to play the role. And she said, I will not do it if I cannot have a father for my children. And because of that, the white so-called Jew, whose objective it was to give our people negative messages, said, I'll buy my time. We'll start with a man to begin with, but eventually we'll get rid of the man down the line. So James Evans, you know, we remember James Evans in the show. He was put on the show, and every single show, every time they went to write it, all the writers for Good Time were white. All of them were white except for Eric Monty. And every time they went to sit down and discuss the prospect of what they were going to do with this show and the new script for each show, each week, every single time, Norman Lear and the other whites would say, we need to get rid of this father character. It's not good for what we're trying to do. And so the reason we saw James Evans in that show for the 2 or 3, 4 years, how many years he was on the show, was because the black people on the show were systematically fighting and warring to keep him on the show. Every show, when they went to read the new scripts, they say, the people that were on the show now, when they do interviews, Malona, the sisters, Michael Evans, they said that when they read the script, invariably, there were some things that were so racist and insulting to our people that they would negotiate to change what was being said so that we could have a positive, a halfway decent show. So the reason that Good Times had even any good stuff that was going on in it because black people were fighting about it. And eventually, they got so sick and tired of fighting with him that the brother who played James Evans' character left the show. And that's when we remember that he died and things of that nature. But the point being is that in this show, we had a bunch of white writers trying to make black people believe that we cannot change our situation. That's why every show he'd get a job at a car wash, and after 5 minutes of the show, he done lost his job at the car wash. Or if he ain't lose his job at the car wash, we remember Thelma finally, beautiful as she was, finally met a brother. He was a football player. They get married. And JJ gets in the aisle, and the brother falls over top and breaks his leg. Now he can't play football now. He's stuck in the apartment too. Every type of calamity and disaster we can think of, because the object was to make black people believe there's no way that we can get out of our circumstances. We're stuck where we are, and that we should be happy because these are good times. It's social and psychological engineering done at the highest level.
For folks, if you have not seen that program, you should go back and watch it. I hope go back and watch it and study, appreciate what Irritated Genie just shared with us. But if nothing else, if I can't get you to go back and study it for any other reason, go back to see a young Janet Jackson, if for no other reason.
I know that's right, brother. Yes, sir.
And just cherry on top, you talk about how all the images of black males in Good Times, how James Evans, played by John Amos, can't keep a job, ultimately killed off. Thelma, when she finally does get a husband, he breaks his leg. Even Bookman, who is the janitor in the building, when he's constantly ridiculed, Buffalo Butt, can't fix anything. He's just basically there to be the butt of everyone's jokes. I mean, you really, if you think about it, you're really being presented with just tons of images of impotent black males. And what I'll say, I remember watching Good Times when I was young and confused. This is how good the system of white supremacy is in terms of psychological warfare. I remember watching Good Times and loved it. I used to watch Good Times all the time. I remember thinking, man, I don't like James being here. He's just angry and yelling and fussing at everybody and beating kids. Gosh, I hate James being here. I wish they would get him off the show. I remember that when I watched your DVD, Feminism, Lesbianism, and the Making of a Black Widow. I strongly remember thinking, gosh, I wish they would get him out of here, because he was just a terrorist in the household. That's what can happen when you're confused about racism and white supremacy. It is a reason he was angry and a terrorist in the household. White supremacy. And I'm sure other people, if they're honest, I'm sure there are other people who felt that way, because he was always angry and yelling. He couldn't keep a job. I mean, it's terrible. Removal of black males. That happened in Good Times.
And then can I say one more thing about Good Times?
Please.
This is what people don't understand. The JJ character was not supposed to be a buffoonish clown. That was something completely brought up in the mind, and not only that, JJ was not going to be the main dominant character in the show. The Sambo clown character that we know as JJ was created by the Small Hats and superimposed as the superstar or the focus of Good Times, when it was supposed to be focused around the mother and the father, who were taking good care of their family, even though they were in a poor and poverty-stricken environment.
Buffoons and clowns. Impotent buffoons and clowns. Consistent imagery. That's what you should expect from the machinery of white supremacy. I see a strong relationship between so-called feminism and a lot of this conflict between black males and black females. I see a lot of this designed towards removal of black males. Black females, you don't really need a black male. He can't do anything for you anyway. He's mistreated you. Do you see that playing out in terms of getting black females to just, hey, ditch that black male, he's dead weight anyway?
Let me tell you something. It is so prevalent in Washington, D.C. Now, when I grew up in Washington, D.C., it was probably about 85% black. So the demographics have changed. It's probably more like 50% black now. But when I grew up there, it's probably about 85% black. And the prospect of seeing an interracial couple was so remote, I don't remember any when I was growing up. I don't even remember thinking that you could do it, because it would be looked at as some kind of alien behavior to be dating a white female and to bring her into a black community. People just wouldn't tolerate it. It was something, I can't describe it, but it was just an understanding that you just didn't do it. If it was something you did it and hid it, and you never brought them around your community. Now, when I go downtown Washington, D.C., I actually work down there. I see it every single day. In fact, it's so prevalent in some places when I talk to people that live around the country that it predominates the number of relationships they see with black men and black women. The media has been so effective in convincing black women that black men are either homosexual, criminals, or otherwise no good for them, or want white females, that literally you hear black women repeat that as a justification for going out and dating white males. And if you look on television, you see movies like Something New. They're rerunning, you have the television show Lincoln Heights. Most dominant characters we see in the media now are presenting black women either as lesbians or lovers of white males. And if you look out in society, we see that reflected in a number of black women justifying and actually participating in dating, marrying, and having babies outside of their race, which is actually actively committing genocide against our people. It is very effective, too. I'll show you, though, what happens when you begin to think. If the reality was that, well, let's talk about first things first. This is how much of a system of genocide we're living in. Black women complain that they're getting AIDS from black men who go to prison, involve themselves in sexual relationships with other men, come out and give them AIDS. That's one thing. That is true. It is happening. But if that is true and it is happening, then the black woman should be completely against homosexuality. Because it is the homosexual relations that males are having with each other that is giving black women AIDS. So you would think that black women would have picket signs going around saying homosexuality is bad for the black community. Instead, the primary promoter among black people and protector of this decadent, sordid death style that we call homosexuality is black women. They are the ones we call fag hags that walk around the malls with homosexuals and protect the behavior and support this behavior in black males. But then those same black women come back with a justification of why they're dating outside their race, that the black men are homosexuals. Well, there's a problem here. It doesn't make sense. How can you be the primary promoter and substantiator of this type of behavior in your community and at the same time complain and use it as a justification to go and date outside your race? It doesn't make sense. How can you say that you're mad? This is how deep it gets. When they talk about who's giving them AIDS, black women say black men are giving them AIDS. But when they talk about protecting sexual deviants, they say you shouldn't judge a homosexual. What I'm saying is that doesn't make sense. Why is he classified as a black man when he's giving you AIDS? Why not a homosexual? Because it's his homosexuality that is the impetus for you getting AIDS. No, you classify him as a black man. Why? Because you're doing what you've been told. It don't even make sense. His homosexuality, you call him down low. No, call him what he is, homosexual. So then you can say homosexuals are giving black women AIDS, you're against homosexuality. But if you did that, you would be against genocide. So since whites want you to be in favor of genocide, they make you support contrary, conflicting positions. You support homosexuality, yet you down the black man. Well, the black man is the one that's saying homosexuality is wrong, and that a man shouldn't be participating in that because he should be with a woman, which means you would have an opportunity to have a husband, which is what you claim to say that you would want. But the homosexual is the one giving you AIDS, but you don't blame him, you blame the black man. So the black man is getting doubly abused on the flip side of a coin, and none of us are paying any attention to what's happening. These are psychological warfare games that Europeans are playing, and ultimately what ends up happening is that the very behaviors that black women are supposed to be supporting that would help them are the very things that they fight against. And the very things that are killing black women are the very things that they support. So the logical conclusion or the logical step, if black women are saying we have a crisis where black men are homosexuals going to jail or they want white females, the logical conclusion is that black women would come together and say, okay, we're going to raise our sons not to like white females, but only to like black women and to be loyal to their women. Not to be homosexuals, but to be strong, committed black men and not to involve themselves in crime. Contrarily, black women are allowing their children to listen to criminal music, hip-hop, wear their pants hanging off their behind like thugs, and won't allow a man to put any discipline on their children so that their sons run in and out of juvenile detention, involving themselves in homosexual behavior, which once he starts getting involved or gets sexually abused or finds it interesting, intriguing, and starts dressing in these tight, skinny jeans that she goes out to the store and buys for him, then she supports, when the father says, I don't want my son to be like this, then she supports, no, you got to let him be who he is. Now, all of these things are the things that she's claiming that she doesn't want. Then She perms her hair. She puts bleach on her skin. She does everything she can do to look like a white female, but complains that her sons and black men, when they get to a certain level, run out and chase white females. Everything that she don't agree with, that she says is her justification for running out to the white male, she supports, and she's the main supporter in the black community of it, which tells us it is not her intent, and she is not the villain. It is the whites who orchestrate her thinking. They have the black woman on a crash course, collision course for genocide and self-destruction of the black community. And it is now, when they have the black man at the weakest point in the history of the world that we are in, that they have gone directly through and picked the black woman as their primary partner and an ally in the war against the black race, knowing that as black men we are not organized to protect our women's minds, we don't have their loyalty commitment, and we're not protecting them so that we cannot prevent them from being pulled into a war of their own self-destruction.
Author of War on the Horizon, Black Resistance to the White Sex Assault, the Irritated Genie. Please, if you are appreciating the information that is coming to you, please go to the website and support his efforts. The website, waronthehorizon.com. Again, waronthehorizon.com. They have excellent DVDs. You can get the book. They have DVDs with lecture presentations. I got to watch 2 excellent ones, Feminism, Lesbianism, and the Making of a Black Widow. They also have Integration, the Illusion of Inclusion. Just fantastic information. Please support waronthehorizon.com. And I can plug, he has an upcoming event because we have a lot of listeners in the Maryland area. If you're in the Baltimore area, June 13th, Irritated Genie will be giving a presentation titled Hollywood and Its Impact on Black People, Part 2. Again, that'll be June 13th, 1 p.m. Eastern. Contact information, you can dial 410-209-9687. Again, that's 410-209-9687, and that's going to be coming up on June 13th. Please support. I guess we've been doing all this talk about black males and how the system of white supremacy has conditioned black females and black males to be in conflict with one another, and black females to have a lot of resentment towards black males. I try to look for contradictions, areas where that is not the case. And your DVD presentation, you made an excellent point, picking out one particular brother especially that we don't seem to be very upset with.
My mind's telling me no.
Given the contrast of how I know a lot of black people feel about R. Kelly, how they feel about Mr. in The Color Purple, can you kind of break down that contradiction, please?
Yes, it's you know, and I'm going to admit, I get extremely angry when I have any discussions about the R. Kelly situation, because if I can give just a little bit of background, I don't want to inundate people with my personal life story, but I do think it's kind of relevant to explain why I get so passionate about this. As a black male who had a mother who introduced me to nationalism and consciousness and knowing my own black history and, teaching me about Nat Turner and making him a primary hero in my life as a youth, I've always been struggling to find this war. Meaning, I did not have a construct of what was going on in the world. I knew things were wrong. I knew they had something to do with black people and whites. I did not understand what the line of demarcation was. I didn't understand what the logistics of the war was. I didn't understand that it was a war. I knew that there was something going on. I wanted to be part of it. I wanted to fight, and I wanted to win. But I just didn't know what it was. And so I always searched. And in doing that, the more I began to find, the more I began to learn, read Malcolm X and hear Minister Farrakhan and learn about the nation and Marcus Garvey and read David Walker's Appeal and things of this nature, the more I began to develop a serious, strong, militant resistance to white power and white life in general. And as a result, as a youth, in my dialogues with people, I would always, try to, gauge the militancy in black hatred towards whites, if you will. And in doing that, I don't know if I was doing it on purpose at the time, but it was just something through trial and error that I had learned. And the best example I can give is my mother. My mother is a very conscious woman, a very loving black people woman, and doesn't like racism and white supremacy, but she's a kind person. There's not a violent bone in her body. The only time I would get a rise out of my mother, and she would agree with me when I say somebody needs to be killed, because, of course, being a male and being aggressive and seeing the condition of our people, it makes you angry. In my youth, and I might say maturity, but some would say immaturity, I would constantly be telling all these people that need to be killed. You can't have Uncle Tom, they need to be killed. Anybody do something wrong with it, they need to be killed. The whites, they got to be killed because this, that, and the other. And, of course, people don't agree with that, but there was one constant agreement I got from black people. When I got to talking about somebody molesting a child, I remember it like it was yesterday. My mother used to, and sometimes we would have a discussion, and my mother would be right, and I would realize she was right, but I wouldn't want to give in, so I'd adjust and change the conversation because I would want us to agree by the end of it. And the conversation would curve to me saying to my mother, well, somebody molested a child, they should be killed. And she would say, well, you know what, son? And every time I said it was like I said it to her for the first time. She said, now, one thing I got to say. I don't believe in killing and capital punishment, but if somebody puts their hand on a child, and that's one time I believe you should take them out the back and somebody should kill them. Because nobody should put their hand on a child. And it wasn't just my mother. It didn't matter how Christian the person was. It didn't matter how nonviolent. It didn't matter how much white folks they loved. I found it as a general a black ethic. And I used to like that because I knew that I had a trump card that I could always end any conversation or debate with an agreement that somebody messed with a child should be shot. Why I found that and how I found it, who knows? But I did. And so because I was attached to the pulse of that reality, during the course of the last 20 years, I've been measuring it because I was just in tune to it. So I literally was very conscious in watching our people go from being anti-pedophile and hostile towards people that rape children. I mean, I'm watching it while it's happening, like a slow, Brother Mulimu Baruti describes it as a slow car crash occurring. As you're watching it happen in slow motion, you see everything that's going to happen, but you feel like there's nothing you can do about it. I'm watching the gauge of black decency go deeper and deeper into non-existence. And I never forget when the R. Kelly situation happened, which is a black male. For the first time in our history, a black male, there's actual physical proof, video of him raping a child. I knew at that moment, I said, this is one of those critical moments in history, the right thing has to happen. In my mind, the right thing, somebody needs to take him out. Because, not for the particular crime, even though I think the particular crime deserves that, but our people need to know, our women need to know, that if we know someone is abusing them, that person is going to face consequences. See, it goes back to what we talked about during slavery. And this is the thing, too. Women are not like men. Men tend to vocalize their anger right off the top. Women, when it comes to disappointment in their men's behavior, they don't want to tell their men they're disappointed in them. So they suffer silently, but that suffering comes out in different ways. I remember when it happened, I remember it very vividly. I think it was it wasn't Wendy Williams. It was some of the major entertainers. It may have been Wendy Williams, but it was some of these major entertainers that were on the radio back at that time. Big personalities. They were like, if he really did that, he needs to be under somebody's jail, and we're not playing this music anymore. There was a big backlash when it first happened. They took all this music off the radio, and I said, this is beautiful. I said, this is what we need. I said, now we just need the final completion. Because when he's gone and he's harmed because he's done it, black people will now have, for the first time we've seen it happen, now we have a context of this thing called a pedophile and what should happen to him. It would lead to dialogues on the radio. Do you think he should have been killed for what he did? say, yeah, man, I'm going to R. Kelly anybody that mess with my child. I'm going to just tell you like that. He would become the poster boy for the consequences for the victimization of black children. And then it would have been an understanding and agreed upon agreement in our community that it is wrong to mess with a child, and if you do it, somebody might take you out, and we agree with that, and we think it's the right thing. It would have led us in the right direction. And I was very sensitive to it because I had been studying sexual abuse because of the circumstances in my life of people who had told me they'd been sexually abused. And when I found out it existed, I began to just try to understand why would these happen to the people I knew. So when this was going on, I was like, wow, I was very in tune to it. Since that time, though, his career has doubled and tripled. And our women are the ones who are buying his music. Our women are the ones that are going to his concerts, which means black women, again, are incentivizing the behavior, the misbehavior that is leading primarily to their own destruction. Here you have a male that rapes and sexually violates a young girl. And here black women blame the young girl for being sexually victimized and reward the brutalizer of the souls of black women, which, if she understands that that is her sister and she and her sister are one, this is her abuser. So virtually, black women are rewarding sexual abusers for the sexual abuse of children, which ultimately says they're in favor of it. Now, if you ask a black woman, are you in favor of sexual abuse of children, they're going to say no. But their behavior does not reflect upon that. So in other words, again, we go back to the training in the minds of black women that the whites, on the one hand, use a movie like Color Purple that most people don't realize the entire staff that produced the film The Color Purple are white so-called Jews, small hats. The entire cast. I mean, the entire creators, executive producers, directors, all of them. It's a team of them. None of them are black. And the film was, when I say loosely based, it was almost no relation to the book whatsoever except for the name. And on the one hand, they create this film with this black male monster that rapes black women. And the answer to that in the film is that you hate pedophiles. You hate rapists, and so that you despise them. Everybody hates Mister and wish he would have died in that film. But then they come out into the real world, and the same woman who loves The Color Purple, where the black man is depicted as a sexual, violent monster and attacker of black women, that same woman who says she hates Mister and hates his character, goes out to the real Mister and gives him millions of dollars to continue to molest our children. Now, why does she do it? She does it because she is not thinking on her own volition. She is a victim of Negro cheat syndrome, meaning the European says it and she does it. The European tells her to do it and she does it. So the European tells her to hate black men and look at them as sexual abusers. She hates, like the sister said before, when black men are fighting racism, they're sexist. In other words, they hate black women because you're fighting racism. That's her perception. He teaches her to look at that like that. But then when a black male in real life rapes black women, the European doesn't want her to hate him, because if she really hates the sexual abuser of black women, then she's going to look for resolution. Who does she get resolution from? The father, her brothers, black men, who will go and deal with this situation. Then she will get love and appreciation for black men who deal with the problem of sexual abuse, and she will be tied again in the bond with black men. Well, the European doesn't want that. So the European puts the real Mister, who really does rape black women, makes him a hero that the black woman supports and protects when black men say he should be destroyed. And now, again, she's living a contrary existence, which tells you it is not her fault. These things are not logical, and the mind cannot logically come to these same conclusions. She is being led, and a lot of it is our fault as black men, because we're supposed to be the leaders of our community and the protectors, and that includes the mind. And that means that if our women are being given misinformation, it is our job to produce a cow's radio to say, sisters, we love you. Here's the correct information. Here's the behavior that would allow you to keep a good man and be happy in a committed relationship. Here's the behavior that will make you feel better about yourself and make you more successful in life. Here are the things that men won't tell you that we look at you as if you do these certain behaviors, and then you do them and we punish you and you don't know why. So here, don't do that, sister. We don't, that's our job, and I'm glad to see that you're doing that job, and that's what we try to do at War on the Horizon. As men and women, we've got to start understanding we are supposed to be protecting each other's interests, not just physical, but mental.
Again, our guest, pleasure to have him on the program, second time, the Irritated Genie, Context of White Supremacy. I hope people really pay attention to that, because, I mean, that contrast is incredible. The way I hear most black females speak about the color purple and Mr., the character played by Danny Glover, the way I hear most people speak about him and the real-life version of that, R. Kelly, very different. Very different. But again, all of this to blame on the system of racism, white supremacy. Another aspect of our programming, in addition to, and it's really complementary. This is why I tell people, when you have a system, every other component of that system works together. White people's system of racism, white supremacy, all areas of people activity support each other and the common goal of brutalizing black people. When you push the color purple or good times or the newer versions, along with feminism and the demonization of black males, invariably, the second step is come and get a white man instead. These so-called interracial relationships. You in your DVD, Integration, the Illusion of Inclusion, you talk about there's a two-step process. Number one, you racially integrate the bedroom. And then number two, race whitening. Can you break down race whitening in this two-step process?
Yes. Historically, this is one thing our people are a victim of, and one thing that white supremacy and whites who control the system and make the system of racism and white supremacy do. They make sure they disconnect us from history. Because when you know what happened yesterday, you're better equipped to deal with things that happen today. Most of our people have not read The Destruction of Black Civilization, and even those that have read it don't necessarily understand it in relation to its modern context of racism and white supremacy to be able to put together an understanding of why we see certain phenomena. Historically, when we had the strongest empires, when black people were the strongest group of people on the planet, we had the strongest armies, we had the superior civilizations on this planet. In order to destroy our people, they could not defeat us physically because at that time we were superior. Contrarily, what they did, they took a very patient, mature, devastating approach to annihilating black people or to taking over power in black society. They integrated the bedroom, meaning they would move in, and because of our kindness, we would allow them to move in to our civilizations. And slowly but surely, they would begin to marry in, and they would marry up. They would never marry a black person who was at the normal level of society. They would always want to marry a dignitary, an architect, a professional, someone in a royal family. And eventually that's what they always did. They married up to the royal family. And us not paying attention to the consistency of aggression of whites against our people, we would allow them to do that. They would eventually gain power, and then they would invite in invading white armies once they had taken power of the society in after they have made us weak, and then they would destroy those black civilizations and take them over. This is something that they've done for thousands of years. And in order to do that, they would create what we would call a mulatto class, meaning the whites would intermarry with black people and make these mulattoes. The purpose for the mulattoes when black people were in power was that those mulattoes would be trained by their white parents, unbeknownst to their black parents, to serve the interests of the whites. And so they could pose as having pseudo-black skin, and black people would not realize that it was a white takeover. And they would do everything when they had to make serious decisions on helping whites gain ground on black people. They would use the mulatto to do that, because we would be confused as to whether the mulatto was good or bad until, you know, the final assault came and we lost, and by then it was too late. And so the mulatto class is something that was created by integration in the bedroom. We think because one to one African to one European, if they have a child has color. We think a black person and a white have a baby, it makes them black. It doesn't work that way, really. I mean, to some degree, yes, it is going to be a child with some color to it, but we have to look at it more maturely. The way the Europeans do it is not one-to-one. First of all, they're doing it. We're not doing it. We're not marrying into whiteness in the sense of we're not taking control of their society. When whites marry black people, they are in the dominant situation. Even when we were in power, and they're in the dominant situation because they are the ones with an agenda. We never have a mature race agenda marrying into whites. Meaning we never married into white society and tried to come in and marry through the top and then take them over and destroy them and kill them. So they're in a superior position because the black person is silly enough to just marrying white folk just to marry them. Well, the white that is marrying has an objective of what's going to come out of that in favor of their race. So now that's how they did it when black people were in power. When whites have been in power and they have seen our numbers growing and have been concerned about our numbers growing, they have actually exterminated entire groups of black people by integrating us. Because when they integrate us, making every black person marry somebody white, and then making the children of that marry into the whites, what happens is, after 3 generations, they wipe out any visual sign that the person is an African. So you have places like Australia, you have places like certain regions in Brazil where the strategy to commit genocide against black people was not to kill us, but actually to systematically get us to marry whites. And those whites will marry us and dilute our bloodlines so thin that eventually the person just looks white and becomes a member of the white race, thus eradicating black people. This has happened all around the world. Now, I know many of us are students of Dr. Francis Cress Wells. And again, if you're talking one African to one European and they have a child, yes, you have a child of color. Well, we have to understand, though, history does not say that it has worked that way. Because generally speaking, we have never operated with a scientific approach of trying to annihilate whites with our genes. They have actually successfully annihilated groups of African people with their genes. So when we talk about integration being used to annihilate or destroy a race of people, they have actual historical accounts, many of them, of annihilating black people doing it. So when we look out today in society and see Barack Obama, mulatto, white mother, when we go out and see all of these individuals on television that are the newscasters, the anchors, many of the politicians, the heads of NAACP, even though these organizations don't necessarily represent us, and if they do, not properly, at the end of the day, when we see a hierarchy of lighter-skinned mulattoes, it is not the complexion of their skin, it's the complexion of their character, meaning what we're seeing is an organized effort to create a buffer class so that when whites make their major moves against black people, they will not have to fight us directly. Before we get to the whites, we got to deal with our Negroes and our Uncle Toms. Once we've dealt with them, we got to deal with the homosexuals and the lesbians and the freaks and the criminals in our community. Once we've dealt with them, now we got a mulatto class to deal with. We got to deal with these freaky mulattoes that some of us want to think are our friends, and then we give them a position of authority, and all they do is turn on us. So then we got to deal with this mulatto class that is a regime and a buffer that can pose as black one day and go back and tell them what we're doing, then pose as white the next day. And then we finally get to the arbitrator and the perpetrator of racism and white supremacy pulling the strings. Now, after all that fight, we so tired we ain't got no fight left in us, and they have not even begun to fight with us at that point, so they fresh. This is a systematic two-step process, like the brother says. If they start with integrating and create the mulatto regime, then once they've done that, they go to war with black people, and they literally take the remaining smaller groups of black people, integrate them into the white society, and exterminate our people. So that integration is a key element in the destruction of black civilization. Meaning there's no thing that has been worse for black people than integration. If you look at an African society historically that has no European influence, these were the most thriving, greatest civilizations we ever produced. Every single one of them failed because of some form of integration. Whether it was slavery, whether it was colonialism, whether it was a prefabricated warfare in ancient civilization, whether it was kingdom takeovers by marrying into the top bloodlines of any kingdom and taking over rulership and then bringing in invasions, integration, or whether it was black people accepting European values, even if we didn't accept the European as an individual, if we accept homosexuality or we accept lesbianism or feminism or capitalism in its purest racist, demonic sense. Any of the European value systems or Europeans themselves that we accept or allow into our society or that are forced into our society have been disasters for African people historically. Integration is the key element in the destruction of black civilization.
Context of White Supremacy, our guest, the Irritated Genie. I hope folks who, if you are a new listener, please check the archives. A lot of the folks that have been mentioned have been on this program. Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, she has made 4 trips. Neely Fuller Jr., he's been here 8 times. Dr. Baruti, he's been here twice. A lot of folks. And you can hear today's guest, the Irritated Genie, he's been here before as well. I have said consistently on this broadcast, non-white people who engage in sexual intercourse with white people, one of the symptoms that you can look for, divided loyalties. And that's a direct quote, non-white person. She was going to come on the program to talk about racism. She's written books about racism, and she saw I advertised this with no shame. I strongly oppose sexual intercourse with white people. She saw that and said she could not come on the program, and she said, in quotes, I'm married to a white person. I have divided loyalties. Not an isolated incident. Not an isolated incident. I see that consistently with non-white people who are sexually engaged with white people. That's something you can look for, and you go to his website. You can read all about that, waronthehorizon.com. I want to, before I get to the phone lines, because we got a ton of people that called in to take a few questions, I want you, number one, I want you to promote your material, the website, anything that you're doing in the future, if you can let us know about that so we can be looking out for you. But the last question I want to ask before we go to the phone lines, I had, I don't know, I suspect it was a non-white person, but they were writing in. I was telling listeners that I think it's important that we read. Black people, we've had a long legacy. The system of white supremacy, not that long ago, it was an offense punishable by death. If you were a black person in this area of the world and you learned to read, if you were teaching another black person to read, I try to encourage folks, read. Get the material, learn, try to get as much information as you can about racism, white supremacy, or just constructive information, period. Try to get your hands on that. And I had a non-white listener who said, reading, that's just parroting. You're just parroting information. You're not thinking. You don't need to read. Stop telling people to go out and read. Wow. You are an author, and you have quoted a lot of authors. Chancellor L. Williams, Destruction of Black Civilization, Dr. Kamal Kamboon, author, Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, Neely Fuller Jr., Dr. Baruti, What is your thought on that? That reading is not that important, that we shouldn't be telling black people to go out and read?
I'm not trying to be funny, but it's probably one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard in my life. Reading is fundamental. That's not just a statement. It really is fundamental and foundational for it, particularly when you're talking about fighting a warfare. You know, there's a thing about reading is that it's highly interpretive, and it forces you to think. Discussions with people and listening is less interpretive. Watching DVDs or images is less interpretive. When you read, you actually have to take these letters that are formed into different things that we call an alphabet, and each of those alphabets come together in something we call a word. And then these words come together in something we call sentences and then paragraphs. But they create ideas and pictures in our mind that we have to look at and interpret and then develop them. So it means that you're on a very sophisticated and high level of learning when you're reading. You're not only getting information, but you are exercising the process of intense thinking. It's things we don't think about it, but what you have to do to read and understand and comprehend and consider is something that you don't get out of many other types of disciplines. Reading is critical. Most wars are won, not all, but most are won by people who read. Most plans for wars, successful wars, are created by people who read. The Cuban Revolution, where 20 men under the leadership of Fidel Castro and Che Guevara, 20 men overthrew a country. I mean, they had other men by the time they finished, but it was 20 men that started this. One of them was a doctor, one was an attorney. Those were men who had to read to learn the information that had been already found about the body in medicine to be an effective doctor. The other, learning the law, the rules that exist, how to go into a court and win favor. That's what you're trying to do. Win friends and influence people. How do you get people to agree with you and side with you? That's what an attorney really is, based on what things have been written down. What I'm saying is that, yes, it takes everyday people to formulate an army, but the people who construct the type of army, the type of war you're going to fight, and the type of success you're going to have in life are people that read. So even for the individual, if we're not talking about on a global scale like we're talking about for an individual, the people who tend to be the most informed, the best at their jobs, the best radio show hosts, the best athletes, the best anything, are people who not only pay attention to their field, but read, because they run across different ideas and information that they have to look at and interpret, and they do things with that new information from that type of learning process that they can't get from anywhere else. Reading is less parroting than any other form of information gathering other than creating the whole stuff yourself. I mean, reading is one of the best possible ways to get informed and to create understanding. So anybody that tells black people that we should not read is giving us information that's totally counter to our well-being as a race of people.
Wow. Poisonous, I would say. Anyone who is around black people and saying, don't read, reading is dumb, I'm highly suspicious of what you're doing, your motivations, unless you have just been intensely victimized, which I guess could be the case, but, you know, yeah. Thank you for those. And I hope you'll read our guest book, War on the Horizon, Black Resistance to the White Sex Assault. Read the book and check the website, waronthehorizon.com. Are you okay taking a couple questions? Because we had a lot of folks that called in.
I'd love to take some questions, brother.
Okay. Groovy. I'm going to do Dr. Combone one more time before we hit the phone line.
Our people are very serious about not being very serious. Meanwhile, white people are very serious about playing hardball against us. And this hardball is called genocide.
First caller, you have a hand up. Looks like you have a blocked number. If you have a question for the Irritated Genie, you are on live.
Can I be heard?
Loud and clear.
Greetings, brothers. I wanted to ask your guest. I have a few questions. I am a black female. I constantly encounter this group of, I think they're feminists, but black females who are always participating in degrading black men, anything black male. I suspect them to be feminists. They claim to be about black women's empowerment. They are targeting girls as young as 12 years old to get their books on interracial dating and relationships into their hands, and always promoting white men, excusing white men from slavery. There's even a book called Don't Bring Home a White Boy, and basically it's the manifestation of all of this. My goal and purpose as a black woman who understands what's going on and sees the game being played is to counter it. And I wanted to know if you could recommend any books or anything else that might help inform me better to participate in countering this.
Yes, and I have to admittedly say, brother, is it any way, I definitely want to answer the sister's question, but I can barely hear with the static from her phone.
Oh, okay.
Okay, thank you. It sounds fine now. I just couldn't hear. I couldn't hear over the static of the phone, but I'm fine now. All right. With the sister, one, I want to say I really appreciate this, and I mean this. I'm not just saying this. That's one thing people will learn about me if you don't familiar with me. I'm not going to tell you something if I don't mean it. I'm not going to just give you praise for no reason. I really appreciate it when the sister says she hears this, she recognizes what it is, and she wants to fight it. And I'm going to be honest with you, this is one thing that black women really have to come up with. I'm not saying that I won't help at all, but I'm saying honestly, I think it is most conducive for black women to organize some kind of movement to fight against it. Because let me tell you what's really going on. Again, that's why we explained it in the beginning. Feminism and lesbianism go together. These sisters that she's talking about, I don't have to know them per se. I've studied this long enough. I've watched this war. They're lesbians because lesbianism and feminism go hand in hand. And their objective is to lesbianize, feminize, either way, these black girls and black women to turn them into either lesbians or lovers of white males. It is racial treason at its highest level because it goes through the wound of the race. I would say, and I'm not saying this just to sell my product, but honestly, I would say the only thing that I have that I think really speaks to help somebody understand feminism would be the lecture that I have, Feminism, Lesbianism, and the Making of a Black Widow. And then as it regards to that, what other information is out there, I'm sorry to say, off the top of my head, I can't really, matter of fact, let me tell you this, the reason I created that video, I didn't know that anything out there that was effective. I will say this though, sisters like the sister that just called, who feel the same way. You know, I'm very leery of black women organizing among black women these days because most of those times when I see it happen, it's a bunch of lesbians or a bunch of feminists. But if black women like my sister begin to organize and say, no, we want a movement, it needs to be structured in this way. This is what I can say. You need to organize around the base of it. I can't give it a name or whatever, but something to the effect of black women for the collective progress of the black race. Meaning black women who believe in heterosexuality, for lack of a better word, or black sexuality, which means a man with a woman, who believe in supporting black men, who believe in taking care of our children, who believe in fighting racism and white supremacy, who believe in preventing more of our children from being feminists, lesbians, homosexuals, degenerate hip-hoppers, whatever the case may be. We really are dying and desperately in need for a group of black women to come together collectively to show support for strong black men and support for the race, because right now, unbeknownst to a lot of black women, good black men are becoming disillusioned that there are any decent black women out there. Not based upon decency in terms of what we consider it traditionally, but just as our sister is saying, black women are becoming race traders. And that's never happened in the history of the world, so black men don't know exactly what's going on. They just know they don't like it. But the more I run into decent brothers, the more black women are becoming perceived in the minds of black men as vicious whores who hate their own race and want to kill their own race. We need a group of black women to come out here and show us a contrary reality. So that would be my statements on that.
And can I ask one more question?
Yes, ma'am.
Where would black women like me find like-minded black men? Because that's also a challenge. Most of the men I see where I live are dating women of other races, or they really aren't up to any good. Or they're married.
You want me to tell you something, sis, and I really hate to say this. This is going to sound terrible. This is why another reason why War on the Horizon exists. Because of our circumstances, there really is, it's like a valley of dry bones. I'm going to say this, and it's not going to be the answer that many women want to hear, but it's really true. All of us, men and women alike, have begun to become less selfish. And it's not that it is appropriately selfish for a woman to want a man, a black woman to want a black man. It is appropriately selfish for a black man to want a black woman. But I'm saying, in the world that we live in, there's been so much damage done. The way that you actually meet an appropriate mate, I'm going to just tell you the truth. This is how it works. You do the work that needs to be done. And your mate will be attracted to the same things that you're attracted to in helping our race. And you will meet your mate on the battlefield. I'm not saying that to try to I'm just saying it's what I have observed. We are so discombobulated, you're not going to find a conscious black man that's already pre-made and available and it exists. What's going to happen is you're going to say, this needs to be done for our people, and I'm going to try to do this in the absence of that black man you're looking for. And you may run into a brother or he may run into you seeing what you're doing and don't agree with you. But he appreciates the fact you're doing something. You all talk and before you know it, he wants to help you do what you're doing, and before you know it, you find that man. But it's something about doing this work that leads people of this type of mindset towards one another, and you find your mate. But if you have this mentality and you're not active, you won't find a mate because you're not going to bump into somebody haphazardly who believes in this. Like my brother here that does the C.O.W.S radio show. Many people are being interested and introduced to him and his great work by the virtue of the fact that he's doing the work. He's going to meet his queen through this process because she's going to appreciate what's happening. That's going to be generally the way it happens. Or if he doesn't meet her through this process, when she sees that he's doing this, in order for it to work, this is going to be one of the attractiveness of her to him because he does this, and it's what's going to be the glue that holds it together. Race men and race women find each other on the battlefield. And there's a good book. There's a good book by Brother Mulimba Baruti called Complementarity. I think if you read that book, I think that book is outstanding for every brother and sister out there that's trying to look for your mate. One of the best books written on how you find a good, healthy black mate to fight this war.
Wow. He's been with us twice. We'll see if we can make it 3 times, and we'll break that book down. People who don't think reading is important, you can miss that program, but we'll see if we can make that happen. Person who called in, somebody else called in with a block number. If you called in with a block number, if you have a question for Irritated Genie, you're on.
Hello?
Yes, sir. Loud and clear.
Hey, Irritated Genie.
Yes, sir.
Do you play chess?
I do.
Yeah, I noticed a lot of people don't like to play to the black side. They always want to play the white side because if you play the black side, you got to have a good defense. And I noticed that some of the best defenses for the black side is protecting the queen side. And I I kind of found that interesting in the struggle that we're going through, that if you protect the queen side, then the king can castle up on the queen side. Do you think it's important for us to have a good defense as black people?
I'm going to say it like this. It's an excellent question, brother. And I'm going to answer it. It may be a little long-winded of an answer, but we call our organization War on the Horizon. We call it for a reason. You know, we want to be very much in tune to our time. If you're in a time where your people are dead, you say, up, you mighty race, you can accomplish what you will. You're looking for improvement. If you come at a different time, police brutality, you may say you Black Panthers, Panthers that strike and fight back. It is my estimation and our estimation as an organization that we are in a time, a moment of truth, as our brother Bobby Wright said. We are either going to develop a war system and fully engage with this European, or we're going to be exterminated. In that regard, it is time for warfare. What I'm saying that, and I'm saying that in this regard. So I look at the world from the perspective of warfare. How do we destroy and defeat the white race? How do we end and bring final resolution to this conflict that has been existing for thousands of years? They will not leave us alone. Here are some of the logistics of that war, and I'm going to get to your answer, because your question was very good. You said, should we have a strong defense? Here's the thing. Throughout the course of history, in many cases, we've had strong defenses. But our objective has been to defend ourselves. In very few, and there have been some excellent examples, Menkiparata, Hudi Made, Hannibal of Carthage, very few examples, though, where we have been offensive with whites. Those are a few that I can mention. Generally speaking, we have tried to defend ourselves. The problem is that the white is patient and committed, and so that they will find a way to break through a good defense. If we had done what Marcus Garvey told us to do during his time, if we had done what Elijah Muhammad had told us to do during his time and built, right now we would be in a period where we'd be trying to defend ourselves and figure out what kind of warfare strategy we wanted to engage with. It is my personal opinion at this moment, with my analysis, we have failed to properly do what is necessary to be able to defend ourselves, and we are in such a moment of truth that we no longer can focus on defense. What I mean by that is, I'm firmly convinced that they dropped a bomb on the fault line in Haiti and caused that earthquake. I found out a day later, I saw this on the news, that a day later, or a couple of days later, Bougainville, which is a black community very similar to Haiti in the South Pacific, where they had what's called the Coconut Revolution, brothers and sisters. If you look that up on the internet, you watch it, it'll be one of the most mind-blowing things. You wouldn't be able to believe it. In our lifetime, there has been a modern-day Haiti where black people created a completely self-sufficient society in the South Pacific and fought Papua New Guinea and Australia and beat them in a war and then sustained their own life. Well, all of a sudden, a couple of days after Haiti, they have a bomb right off earthquake right off the side of there. That was some major 6.2 or something of that nature. My point being, their science has gotten so good. They're now taking genetically engineered crops. Monsanto, one of the major corporations. And literally what they have is crops that if you drop these crops into the ground, it prevents the soil from being fertile. It can no longer produce any food except for that same seed that they give you, which means the only way you can eat is if you get their seeds. Well, no idiot farmer will want, they get free seeds. They sow the seeds and they take the seeds out of what comes in and they sow those seeds again. They never ever need to get and purchase those raw materials for seeds for their crops. Under this system, the only way they can have crops is to go to the whites, who will starve them to death and charge any price they want in order to eat. This is what Europeans are doing, but they're dropping these seeds for free all around the world, planting them, throwing them in places, and destroying our ability to eat food. My point being, we cannot defend ourselves, which means we have to look at a contrary strategy, which is a major offensive. We need to start restructuring our thinking. We cannot defend ourselves now because we didn't do what was necessary to be able to defend ourselves when we had the chance. Now we must become an aggressive, offensive-minded strike force, meaning we need to start saying, what do they have that threatens us, how do we attack it? If it's an infrastructure that's intellectual, how do we get on the offensive intellectually? If it's a physical institution, how do we attack it physically? If it's a military installation, how do we create something that can fight with this thing, and when do we strike? We need to become a people who are, as opposed to thinking defensive, which means you wait for your enemy to move. They've moved, and they've done many moves, and now we're in the hole. We're a cat, this is my personal opinion, that is boxed into a corner in an alley, and somebody's coming down the alley with an axe. The cat has to strike. And he has to be effective, because he doesn't, he's going to die. And I'm saying, as a race of people, we want to be defensive because we don't want to be violent. But if we're not violent, we're going to die. So we need to start training our whole psychology to be different. As opposed to saying, we're doing what we're doing to defend ourselves, that is not sufficient. We have to take a new mentality. We have to say, if you're religious, you have to take a religious perspective. God wants the devil and the demon of this planet destroyed. And until we destroy it, we will not have no happiness. So that it becomes religious for us that we have to fight racism. We have to fight the white race because that's what our God wants. If you're an intellectual, then you have to say intellectually you've researched and looked at the information available to our people. And the only logical conclusion that you can come to based on the research is that we must engage in full-scale warfare with the European on every level, defeat them in an absolute manner, and win, and then we can create the kind of world that we want to have. No matter what perspective you come from, we have to become offensive as a race of people. If, by some stretch of the imagination, we survive this onslaught that we're under, and with that offensive mentality, we're able to build something that's worth protecting, we can start talking about a proper defensive at that time. But honestly, right now, we have no means by which to protect ourselves and almost nothing left to protect on this planet except for our interests and our lives.
Caller, last four digits, 5128. 5128. If you have a question for the Irritated Genie, you're on live.
I thank you for coming on the show again. I caught you the first time, and I'm just elated to be able to catch you a second time. I'm in the area of the world called the Gulf Coast. We're kind of scared of oil slick hitting us any day now, but I just want to throw this comment out there that this Memorial Day weekend is considered the, I guess, a big congregation of homosexuals coming to town and basically, you know, doing their thing. But that's my only comment. Thank you for coming back.
Yes, sir. If I may, I'd like to comment on that for a moment.
Go ahead.
Okay, I thank you for that call, brother, and it's so relevant and it's very timely because I wouldn't have thought to say this, but in terms of, since we're talking warfare and that's what we're talking about, and we're talking about offensives, we have to become relevant to the world again because whites are exterminating us like you would do roaches. Nobody regards the roach as a relevant, valuable life, therefore it's nothing to exterminate or kill it. In order for us to become relevant, we have to do something that makes other black people appreciate us and the rest of the world to say, these are people to respect. We had written them off. Maybe we should hear them. Right now, the European, primarily the white so-called Jew, the small head, but by virtue of the fact that they run the white race and they are the orchestrators of racism, white supremacy today, at this particular moment in history, they are the primary orchestrators of the system and how it is operating. They are trying to change the number of people on this planet significantly, meaning cut away millions of inhabitants on this planet. Abortion was one of their greatest eugenics breakthroughs for black people, and eugenics just being the science of genocide. But now they have a greater, more effective tool to eliminate people on this planet, nonviolent tool. The promotion of sexual deviancy, child molestation, homosexuality. But the only race of individuals on this planet that is naturally inclined to participate in this misbehavior is the white race. Every other race of people on this planet is naturally inclined to have man with a woman. Therefore, this is a political agenda and a social agenda and a spiritual and religious agenda that black people with character and backbone can take. And literally, if we're the first ones to take it and hold our ground, every Hispanic with self-respect, every Native American or Hispanic with self-respect, I just said that, every Asian with self-respect, every group with self-respect and the idea of maintaining their own culture will look at what we have to say and take our lead in fighting the war against this sexual misbehavior. Even whites, though they have no true decency in them, but whites who have lived in cultures where they have tried to get away from homosexuality and pedophilia as much as possible, and just recognize that it is freakish and wrong, even many of them will say this is an appropriate agenda to fight. I'm not saying they're going to help us, but I'm just saying we will enlist the goodwill. I'm not saying making friends. I'm talking about warfare here. We will take up a cause that the silent majority of the people on this planet who are not necessarily in control and don't necessarily agree with this push wish they could fight against. We stand up and form a successful resistance to it. We become a relevant group of people again. Not only will we be fighting racism, white supremacy, we will be fighting social degeneracy, we will be fighting for our own culture, we will be fighting because in order to do it, this is the beautiful thing about this situation at this time. It's ugly and it's beautiful at the same time. The beautiful thing about it is that the things that keep us divided are religion, politics, all of these things that white supremacy and the white race has given us to keep us divided. We now have something that we can actually break those ties and come together on. Even your Negro black Christian that loves his white Jesus, if he still got any bit of sense in his head, he know a man supposed to be with a woman. He want his daughter to marry a man so he can have grandchildren. No matter how Muslim the Muslim is and caught up in, he's doing his salats and this, that, and the other, and maybe not even consider himself an African, but he still knows that a man's supposed to be with a woman and he knows decent behavior. So even the Republican Uncle Tom bootlicking, shuffling Negro who thinks that we can still work with whites and if we just pull ourselves up by our bootstraps, he's a Negro. And to some degree, at some point, we're going to have to divorce ourselves from him because he doesn't have the best interest of our people at heart. But one thing he does know, a man's supposed to be with a woman. He has a wife, he has a daughter and children. What I'm saying is there's a substantial silent majority of African people. And there's an issue on the table that is near and dear to all of us because none of us like what we see in them promoting this homosexuality on our children and our people. So many of our family members are telling us we don't like what we're seeing. We can galvanize our people behind this. And it'll be the first chance we've had in decades, maybe half of a century, to find something we all agree on and we can war with and we'll feel good about it because we'll be doing the right thing. That in line with what the brother asked about defending ourselves, which is basically warfare, is a warfare strategy largely left untapped, and right now I think it's the right time for this type of move.
Well said. Well said. I believe this is Mr. Nero. Mr. Nero, if you have a question for the Irritated Genie, your line is open.
Greetings, Mr. Renegade.
Yep.
Irritated Genie, it's a pleasure to have you on the show again, sir. You are one of my favorite guests. And I don't really have a question, but a request, actually, of both you and Gus. Sir, I'm hoping you will come back on the show and maybe do a show based on the destruction of black civilization by Chancellor Williams, if Gus would agree to that. I would love to hear you come on the show and break down that particular work by Chancellor Williams. That would be my request.
Well, I tell you like this, and I really mean it. If Brother Gus calls me I don't do this with everybody. I like the brother, and I like the work that you all are doing here. I like the maturity of the callers, even when there's disagreement, and I like what you're doing. If he calls me and I can do something, there's an interest in doing it, and he wants to do it, my answer is yes.
I'm all on board. I know you're on the road right now. Once you get back and get settled, I will be in touch with you, and I'm definitely interested. That's a book that I think is very important. I would love to have an opportunity to just dialogue about it and share that material, and hopefully inspire some other black people to go out and get that work. Because I think, and he talks a lot about sexual intercourse between white people and non-white people, and how white people have used that as a key tool to obliterate us worldwide. So, yeah, I would be totally down to do it. And, I'll see if we can make that happen for sure. No problem at all. Wow. I am, again, just incredibly thankful to have the opportunity to have you on the program. I had Mr. Welfare Man queued up to play at the beginning of the program, but I don't know, perhaps racist white supremacists made it not happen. But I thoroughly enjoyed the documentaries, learned a ton from them. I hope people will go to waronthehorizon.com to get the material, books, lectures, incredibly constructive material. I hope you will support. If you want to tell us what you're going to be doing in the upcoming weeks, or any other products you think we should look out for, please let us know.
Okay. Well, I appreciate the opportunity to be on the show. We love nothing more than the opportunity to reach out to our people and give them information that we think can better their lives and they can use constructively to make good decisions. We have a website, www.waronthehorizon.com. We also are available on Facebook. You look up War on the Horizon on Facebook. And our website and our email address is liberation@waronthehorizon.com. That's liberation@waronthehorizon.com. We try to answer all emails within 24 hours, no later than 48 hours, if it's a simple request or question. If it's something that takes us some time to research, then it may take us a little bit more time to get an answer for our people. But we are available to our people. Our phone number is 877-927-0011 or 202-309-9106. All that information is available under the contact information menu on waronthehorizon.com. Just so your listeners know some of the things that we have available on our website. One of the things, we have what we call war rooms, and they come out each month. And each month we have a different war room regarding some major issue confronting African people and a write-up on it. So when you go to the war room, you'll see all the past war rooms. If you go down to the oldest war rooms, October 2007, we had some war rooms dealing, and they're still very relevant, about sexual abuse. We say that because we know that many of our people are suffering the pain of sexual abuse, and we have it free online in the privacy of your own home. You can read about it, learn about where it came from, learn about what brothers and sisters have to go through that have experienced it, and also learn some means by which you can help deal psychologically with the problems that you may have faced from it, realizing it's not your fault, and find some healing. We also have information as it relates to current events. Each of our war rooms are usually something related to a current event, what's going on in Haiti, what's going on in the music industry, what's going on with the promotion of homosexuality, what's going on with the so-called President of the United States, any number of issues that we have. You can also go to our website and go and sign up on our first page. If you look on any of our pages, on the right side it says subscription. And all the subscription is, you put your email in, and then we have an email that we send out, email blasts once or twice a week, sometimes 3 or 4 times a week, with some news and information that will be relevant to you about what's going on in the world as it relates to black people and our interests. We want you to tell people that if you sign up and put it in there and you don't get an email in a few days, check your junk mail, because a lot of times you're getting it, but originally it goes to your junk mail, you pull it out, and then once it gets used to going in there, you'll get them. And you should get no more than 5 a week. But it's very good, relevant, real-time information about what's going on with our people. We also have our we also have our store, the War on the Horizon store on our webpage. You go into the store, and on the store, you can actually purchase any number of our DVDs. We have anything you can think about regarding black people. For the most part, we try to have something that covers it. So if you're looking for economics, then we have a 5-part series on racism, white supremacy, and one of them of that course deals primarily with economics, politics, labor, and law. So we have a 5-part course designed after the teachings of Dr. Francis Weldon and Dr. Millie Fuller, and it's our interpretation of what's going on in all those major areas of people activity and what we can do to actively engage in pursuing against it. We have any number of DVDs about the sexual crisis in the black community, sexual abuse, called Predators and the Myths, the feminization of the black male series, parts 1 through 4, integration. If it's religion, we have Where's Your Black God? We have Christianity and Racism and White Supremacy. And we have a brand new course that's probably one of the breakthrough courses and products in understanding psychological warfare as it relates to media that exists in the world today. It's an entertainment course, a 3-part course. It's available online at our War on the Horizon store. And we stand by our products, brothers and sisters. If you get something that's scratched or you have a problem with the product, you call us up, we send you one right back out. For the most part, we haven't had any issues for the most part, and people love the work that we do. We don't put out trash. We put out well-researched, well-documented, well-formulated, well-produced, quality products for the edutainment and education and liberation of African people. We also, I know these are a lot of alsos, but we also have our event schedule. If you go to that, it tells you where we're going to be. We expect to be in Baltimore June 13th doing the second part of the entertainment course, but we also are surely going to be in Philadelphia on July 10th. That's a Saturday. And we're actually going to do the entire 3-part course in one day. We're going to start at 12 o'clock, go for a couple of hours, take a break, come back, go for a couple of hours, take a break, and finish out. And you can come for either one of the class, or you can come for all 3. And we were charging a fee, but we just came back from Baton Rouge, and they did it for free in Baton Rouge. And we say, hey, if they'll do it for free in Baton Rouge, we'll do the class for free in Philadelphia as well. So we're doing it totally for free. Our people can come out. You can enjoy getting the information and learning. You can bring your children so that they can decipher what it is that they're getting, the messages that are being put forth to them. It's something you can enjoy, and you can go to our events calendar on our website and look at that events calendar, and you'll always know where we're going to be in this country, what we'll be talking about. Lastly, I would say I really, really want to encourage everyone. Oh, I got 2 more things. I'm sorry. We also have War on the Horizon TV. If you were on our email list, if you signed up on our email list and you got an email blast telling you, hey, when we go to Baton Rouge, we're going to be streaming the lecture live. We had many people that watched the lecture live in Baton Rouge on the internet in the privacy of their own home while we were streaming live on Saturday, and got part 1 and part 2 of the entertainment course right there in the privacy of their own home. So get on our email list so you know what we're doing and when we're doing it. You'll enjoy and appreciate that. And the last thing I wanted to say is that I forgot the last thing I was going to tell people about, but at any rate, I just want to say again, brother, thank you for inviting us here on the show. We really appreciate other brothers and sisters out there doing this work, because as we begin to work together as committed Africans to educate our people, it's going to lead to activism, and activism leads to real change. It all starts with ideas, and you are a promoter of good ideas for our people. So if there's anything that we can do to help you and assist you in the work that you're doing, let us know. We will do our best to do that. And with that said, I would like to thank brothers and sisters out there for tuning in. We appreciate your work, Gus, Brother Gus, and brothers and sisters, we will see you on the battlefield.
For sure. I say it again, waronthehorizon.com, the website, chock full of helpful information. Just as I said, always an extreme pleasure and an honor to have you on the program. I'm just incredibly thankful you are willing to share your time with us. You all are on the road, traveling and working hard and willing to take out some time out of your busy schedule to be with us. I hope it was worthy of your time and energy. I'm just grateful and appreciative. I will definitely be in touch soon, and we'll see if we can pull that off. Chancellor L. Williams and the discussions with the Irritated Genie here at the C.O.W.S. Thank you so much. Travel safely. I wish you the best, and I will definitely be looking out and supporting your work as best I can. If there's anything we can do here at the C.O.W.S, let us know. I will definitely do all I can to promote your material and send as many black people to your website and to your material as possible, sir.
We appreciate it, brother. And again, we'll see you on the battlefield.
Yes, sir. Take care and be safe.
Yes, sir.
Our guest, privileged, have him on second time, the Irritated Genie. If you missed the first time, that was April 1st. I know we have a lot of archives to sift through at this point, so if you missed the first time, April 1, that was when he was with us already this year. Quite a suggestion, or request, I should say, from Mr. Nero. Yeah, I'll have to see if we can pull that off. I have to see it because I think that would be very constructive. I know a lot of black people are not familiar with Destruction of Black Civilization by Chancellor L. Williams. Excellent book. Tons of the things that we talked about today right in that book. He breaks it down, extremely comprehensive, very detailed analysis of racism and white supremacy. So yeah, I think that would be very constructive, and I'll see if we can pull that off. I'll be in contact with him in a few weeks, see if we can make that happen. Thank you, everybody, for tuning into the broadcast. My switchboard disappeared, so I can't bring anybody on. I did want to let folks know, tentatively, we should be back tomorrow with Mr. and Mrs. Ragsdale. They are the co-curators of the Lest We Forget Museum of Black Slavery in Philadelphia. Irritated Genie told me about them. Gwen Ragsdale, she was on the program last month. Excellent information. I hope people check that broadcast out. I left a message for her earlier today. We had to reschedule that broadcast. It was supposed to happen last week, and we had to move the date because her son got his degree from Columbia, and they were celebrating his accomplishment. Kudos and congratulations all around. But hopefully they will be with us tomorrow to continue our discussion from last month. You can check the archives and hear what we discussed when they were with us just a few weeks back. We'll also be back on Thursday, Sunday. We have a lot of programs this week, so just keep tuning in, checking back with the website. You can subscribe to the C.O.W.S as well. Click the link and you will get email notifications whenever a program is scheduled and when they're coming up. I don't think you get too many. It's just based on when a program is plugged into the computer, and I think you get maybe a 5 or maybe even an hour. I think you get some sort of notification when a program is about to air live. It might be an hour in advance or 30 minutes in advance, but you get some sort of notification when programs are coming up. But yeah, support the C.O.W.S, subscribe, favorite the program if you find the information constructive. If you do not, invest your time and energy elsewhere. Last thing I'll get out before we wrap things up today, I had the pleasure of not only speaking with Irritated Genie today, but I spoke with Dr. Frances Cress Welsing earlier in the day, and I shared what happened with Mark Potok of the Southern Poverty Law Center. I shared that with her because Dr. Welsing, she was the one who made me more attentive to words, or one person, Mr. Fuller also, but specifically with Dr. Welsing, she pointed out how white people will use the term hate crime. And she said, I think this is another very sophisticated way of practicing racism, white supremacy. And she explained it. This was previously. So I had that in mind when Mark Potok came on the program. So I was sharing what happened on that broadcast with her, and she had quite a chuckle, and she found that very interesting and very much in tune with what she was saying about why you would use the term hate crime as opposed to racism, white supremacy, and specifically why you would not define racism or the term white supremacy. But yeah, she should be coming back next month. We just got to get a date nailed down. But yeah, she should be back in June. That would be her 5th trip to the context of white supremacy. So look out for that. Should be coming up soon. Other than that, this is a record program. This is the 18th broadcast for May, new record for total number of programs in 1 month. Glad Irritated Genie was the program that set the new mark for activity here at the context of white supremacy. I think that will wrap us up for the day. I hope if you don't remember anything else, Irritated Genie in his lectures, he says it consistently. White people are always on their job being racism, white supremacy. I hope non-white people, I hope we will get that same sort of commitment and dedication to being on our job, grinding as counter-racists and attempting to replace white supremacy with justice as soon as possible. We will be back, I suspect, tomorrow evening. The program goes the way I'm hoping it does. It'll be 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Pacific with the Ragsdales, straight from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Thank you so much for supporting the broadcast. We will be back soon and replace white supremacy with justice as soon as possible. The Cows signing out. Thank you.